One day after her nomination, Democrats are trying to stall Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation process. On Face the Nation, moderator Margaret Brennan spoke with Democratic Senator Chris Coons about President Trump's pick for the Supreme Court. Here's what he had to say.
Eisenhower recess-appointed Brennan 22 days before the election, but I understand that was without Senate consent, so I hear your point. But the question was, are Democrats going to do anything to slow this down? Some of your colleagues are saying they won't even meet with the nominee. What will you ask her when you meet with her?
Well, I'm either going to meet with her in person or by phone, just another way this pandemic has upended the lives of millions of Americans. I'll press her on her previous statements about the Affordable Care Act. President Trump said he would only choose a nominee he was confident would overturn the Affordable Care Act. And as you know, Margaret, that's on the Supreme Court's docket just 1 week after the election. It defies comprehension why President Trump would continue in his efforts to strip away from the American people pre-existing discrimination protection. There's more than 100 million Americans who have a pre-existing condition, 7 million more because they've been infected in this pandemic. And I'll remind you, Margaret, Justice Ginsburg's life's work was protecting us against gender discrimination. And before the ACA, insurance companies could and did discriminate against women just for being women by treating pregnancy as a pre-existing condition, charging women more for access to health insurance. It's amazing to me that Judge Barrett has publicly criticized the decision by Chief Justice Roberts that upheld the constitutionality of the ACA, and that President Trump is making it clear a vote for Judge Barrett to be on the Supreme Court is a vote to repeal the ACA and take away health care protection from a majority of Americans.
I understand.
For more on this, I'm going to go ahead and bring in CBS News political analyst Leslie Sanchez and Joel Payne. He's a CBS News political contributor and Democratic strategist. Joel, I'll start with you. Great to see both of you, though. We just heard Senator Coons say that he would press Barrett on the Affordable Care Act. Is that a winning strategy for Democrats?
It's a strategy. I think most Democrats feel pretty frustrated with the circumstances they find themselves in. Really, it amounts to body shots, rhetorically against this nominee. It's not going to create big headlines, but I do think that a lot of these Democrats feel like in this election season, it will land some points that will be helpful in pushing back against President Trump and pushing back against Republicans up and down the ballot. I think the frustration that a lot of Democrats have is the lack of kind of maybe a unified strategy. You have some that are going to go for more, let's just say, bombastic tactics, like maybe not meeting with the nominee and not going to some of the customary hearings. And I think some of them are going to try to engage and to draw blood on some of these issues. So I think we'll see if it works. But to your question, it's a strategy. Time will tell if it's the right one.
All right, Leslie, the last confirmation hearing with Justice Brett Kavanaugh was one of the most contentious in history. This time, the controversy has less to do really with the nominee and more with the timing and charges of hypocrisy. Given all of that, how bruising do you expect these hearings will be?
There's no doubt there's going to be a tremendous amount of hysteria around this. I mean, and you can say that the last few opportunities to put somebody on the highest bench have been this way. So they've been fraught with a lot of kind of political theater, these antics that Joel is talking about. The distinction between this one and Kavanaugh is we're hearing less of these politics of personal destruction, about her religious affiliations, about her being a mom, about these personal attacks. And now they're taking to focus more on Affordable Care Act, some of these other things. But a lot of it is fear mongering because you don't really know. They have yet to meet with this individual who is highly respected on both sides of the aisle. So you would hope that they would tap it down, but that just adding the pall of the election on top of this and the frenzy of the pandemic is going to create its own tremendous tension regardless of the nominee.
Well, Leslie, I spoke with one of Barrett's mentees yesterday. She says that Americans shouldn't count on Barrett to necessarily take a conservative position on the bench if she's confirmed. Might Barrett actually end up surprising party line voters?
I think Republicans and what were perceived as conservative jurists as well as liberal ones have surprised many people once they ascended to the court. That's the part of being impartial. They make their arguments. That's part of being in this cohesive kind of dialogue that they have together on the most pressing issues. That's what you would expect from somebody's impartiality to those. And that's what we're hoping, that once she does get an opportunity to voice her positioning, how she views these opinions, her own opinions, that you'll see why she stands far above the rest and why the president nominated her.
And Joel, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham said that the confirmation hearings will begin in 2 weeks. Are Democrats still trying to fight that timeline, or do they see her confirmation as essentially a done deal?
Well, I guess first, I mean, can we believe anything Lindsey Graham says? I mean, I know he says it's in 2 weeks, but he might change his mind in 2 weeks, and it might be a different day than what he previously said. Given what Lindsey Graham has done publicly lately, I don't know if you can believe much out of what he's saying. I think Democrats understand it's a fait accompli. There are the votes there for Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell typically does not things to the floor that he knows he's going to lose. So I think most Democrats understand that this is really set in stone unless there is something unforeseen that happens in the hearings here. I think what they're going to try to do is forward some arguments that might be helpful in the election related to the Affordable Care Act and to other issues that Judge Barrett might rule on, and also get a commitment as to whether or not Judge Barrett will recuse herself should something related to the election come up. I think those are the two big concessions that Democrats are hoping to come with at this point.
And Joel, I understand, I can hear your frustration, but I'm pretty sure that Lindsey Graham is going to stick with that timeline. And when that happens, we're going to see Biden's running mate, Senator Kamala Harris, right there on the Senate Judiciary Committee. How do you expect that will play into the presidential race?
Oh, there'll be plenty of theatrics, as you would expect, less than 30 or so days away from an election. I think Senator Harris has shown that this is really somewhere where she's in her element. She is a prosecutor, and I think this is the type of a setting where she shines. And so I certainly would imagine she's not going to pass on the opportunity to make that point. But I think big picture, Democrats can use this as an issue to galvanize their base, similar to what I think Leslie would say that Republicans hoped to do with Kavanaugh, a few years ago in this very spot. I think Democrats are hoping to use this to galvanize energy behind Joe Biden, showing the stakes of the judiciary, showing the stakes of the Supreme Court. It's not typically something that Democrats vote on. I think Kamala Harris, I think other Democrats will be hoping to lay out those stakes this time around.
All right, Leslie, last question to you. Strategically speaking, when would Republican senators like to see Barrett confirmed, before or after the election?
Ideally, you want this confirmation to move through, but in talking, just listening to Joel, the political, kind of frenzy that's surrounding this, it's going to be really tough to tell whether it happens. But I will tell you, it was the motivator. Having the opportunity to put conservative oriented judges on the Supreme Court was what turned out a lot of people who did not personally like the politics of Donald Trump, and they got them to the polls. This is a galvanizing issue. It lifts the fog above all the other performance measures for the president, and it crystallizes why they need to vote Republican.
All right, Joel Payne, Leslie Sanchez, thank you both.